Okay. Okay. Ben, I think we are good to go. Okay.
Okay. So, good evening, guys, again.
Okay.
I hope I'm clear, like my sound is clear. You guys can hear me?
Okay. So,
Okay.
guys, again. Okay. I hope I'm clear, like my sound is clear. You guys can hear me? Okay. So, okay. Guys, again.
All right. So, I'm glad to be here again, to be back here again with you guys and just discuss a couple of things that we discussed last time. And then, yeah, it's just a pleasure to be here. And thank you for everyone who has joined so far. And thank you again for Film Chat for the opportunity again, because it's really a pleasure, and not only a pleasure, but also an opportunity for everyone, for us to learn from each other again, which I really appreciate. And for everyone else who has made it here so far, thank you. And yeah, I feel like, yeah, we should dive in again and just look at what we have to talk about today in terms of editing and color grading. I go by the names of Bahati Kajigi Benjamin. Professionally, that is editor, colorist, and DP. I've done a couple of projects, both in films and music videos, documentaries, and other field that you can name it in terms of production. Currently, I'm working in Sauti Plus Media Hub, based in Kampala, Uganda, as well as One Story House, which is one of the partners of Film Chat. So glad to be here again, and then glad to share this and discuss with you guys, and not just hear from you. And yeah. So yeah, let's dive into it. Today we shall be discussing about color grading and editing, and I felt like we should start with editing, and then we shall dive into color grading, because editing then will transition well into from editing to color grading. It will be easier. So yeah, just a second. Yeah. So we've talked about the introduction, and yeah, so we'll be starting with the innovation in modern editing, and then how we got ourselves into from the nonlinear editing to where we are right now. So yeah, what is film editing? We defined it as, that is a definition I got, but there is several definitions that you can get online, and just how you would like to define it. But for me, I defined it as the art, technique, and practice of selecting, assembling, and trimming shots to tell a story, a coherent story. So the main point here is just telling a story, making sure that the story is told by using visuals, and making sure that what has been envisioned by the director is being told in a way that everyone can grasp the story and just understand what has been told. So that's the point of the whole editor, and that is the definition, as you can see on screen. We're having two different pictures on screen, which is of the old ways of editing and how it used to be done back then in for the editors who started doing this thing before us. And yeah, so we used to edit by hand. Today, algorithm, cloud, and workflow and real-time collaboration are changing everything. So from splicing physical film strip, Moviola.
Excuse me, Ben.
Yes.
For the editors who started doing this thing before us. And yeah, so we used to edit by hand. Today, algorithm, cloud, and workflow, and real-time collaboration are changing. For us. Ben, we can't see your screen.
You can't see my screen? Oh, sorry. Just a minute. Okay. Let's see. What about there? Brian? Is the screen clear now? Like you guys can see it? Brian? Hello?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So what would stop it from being? Okay, let's see. Show meeting. Show meeting. Just a minute. Let me try and see what will stop it from being. What about there, guys? Still?
You're not seeing it.
It is there?
No.
Wow. What could be the issue? Because
But
I'm
I
having
think
it.
that's there.
Sorry?
The cursor as if it's there.
Still
cursor
not
is
yet.
there.
I don't know if anyone else can respond. Elvis, are you able to see it?
No, I'm seeing the cursor, but I'm not seeing the screen.
Okay, just a second. Let me try and figure out something. Elvis, what about there?
I'm just seeing the cursor moving.
Wow. What? Then what's the problem here? Because me in my presentation, I'm having it here clear and I can see it on the. Let me add again and we see one more time. Share. Elvis, what about there?
No, it's oh no, it's not showing. It's showing your picture.
Okay, let me do this again one more time. You tell me if it's there. What up there?
Hold on. Yeah, now it's showing.
Yeah.
Not showing.
Yeah, it is sharing now.
Okay, and the sound is clear.
Yeah, the sound is okay.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for that output because I couldn't tell really. Yeah, so as we were saying, we came from slicing physical film strip, Moviola Steenbeck, analog cut, and paste, early called as non-linear editors. So editing is not just technical, it's a storytelling and innovation shift of how stories are told. So back then, this is how people used to go through their editing. Like this is the machine that used to be used for film to be edited. It's called Moviola. So like people could shoot on film and then they bring the film tapes into an editor's room and then he will have to stretch them out and then look for the picture that is really making sense to the story and then they cut accordingly. So that's how it used to be done back then. And here I got some of that have been done while using this style of Moviola. So we're having a couple of them here. Some that I could get their names and their screenshots, like there is Raging Bull. That was cut with Moviola, and then the director was Telma. Use Moviola. So they are giving up reason why they used it. And some of the film, because like if you look at Indiana Jones was done during that period, like during our period of linear editing, but still the director had a reason as to why they wanted to give it that feel. So you found like even up until now, there are some of those old non-linear kind of machine, this Moviola that are still in existence, but it's just a matter of choice. But right now, they are not so popular because it's a very, very old way of cutting films. So yeah, those are the films that are known, that are popular, that were on Moviola. Yeah, so moving forward, so now we move from we came from a non-linear kind of editing that involve using those using strips and tapes to make up a story, and then now we transition from that old way of making stories to the analog way of editing to the real world kind of digital shift that we are into right now. So yeah, this is a rise of nonlinear editors like Adobe Premiere Pro, Avid Media Composer, DaVinci Resolve. There are so many software that are being used. There is also CapCut that is there. There is Final Cut Pro. There are so many softwares and they are being used depending on a need of an editor. So it's the person who chooses when to use this particular software compared to another software. But all of this software, they come up with differences and also features that differ in some of the ways. And then when a person gets to use to a certain interface, so they get used to a certain software. So like we're having different people who are just confident in, let's say in Premiere Pro. Some are good. They just feel like that's the one they can use. And then the different people also use DaVinci and Avid. Like, yeah. So the list that I placed there, it's not like if Premiere Pro comes first, it means that's the one that is leading in the industry, but it's just a matter of choice. But though features differ when it's come to editing, and the more time you are saving from your edit, the more money you're making nowadays. So this shift came up with benefits. And the first benefit that I found was flexibility and ability to undo multiple tracks. That is digital effect first iteration. So like back then, it was very hard to have multiple effect to be done, and then the speed was kind of slow because you would find like you would first have to cut the tapes. But nowadays, it's just a matter of importing footage and then you start laying it down on your sequence and then just your timeline. And then the second benefit is now the remote and distribution workflow. So right now we can work on one project, like let's say 5 people on one at the same time, that is concurrently. Let's say, for instance, we're having a film that you're working on. The moment the editor is cutting, you can even have a timeline that has been shared with some other people on the crew to start doing their part. Like let's say, for instance, the sound design. So we can share now work and just reduce on the workload, which used not to be possible back then in time. We also have the remote and distributed workflow, which I've talked about. Editor now no longer have to sit in the same room with physical tape, which used to be done back in when you're using this style. So now it's not about that. And then this shift laid the foundation for the later innovation, cloud AI real time. So now if you look from where we came from the analog kind of editing up until where we are right now in the digital shift that we are using currently, there's another revolution that we are having currently now, which is that's now mix the two, like the digital world that we are doing right now, like editing using this software that we are having, and the AI that is now out of the market and just trying to speed up some of the things that we are doing. So yeah, now talking about the shift, this is the cloud and collaborative editing workflow. So now you find like editors, colorists, VFX artists, sound designers working concurrently from different locations, sharing footage, timelines, and comments. Yeah, so you find like imagine editing in Kampala while the colorist is in London or name it, wherever they can be, while still working on the same projects, and you guys are sharing feedback. So it's not a matter of giving someone a project and then they sit down, they first cut. When they are done, they submit, then you come and watch. Then a lot of changes, and then what they used to have to edit was not even speeding up their flow. But right now, instead of waiting for the project to be done, you can be sharing your let's say your different cuts as the other people are working. So that makes us even more faster in terms of keeping time and making our project to come out very fast, and reducing on the workload when it's come to a lot of project and time bound that we might be having in terms of editing that we are doing. So yeah, so this really took us to from the introduction to this digital shift that we are in, and then right now we are having this revolution of artificial intelligence and real-time editing influence. So basically, why it matters for editors, it's because what is captured right now is already closer to final look. So you find like editor now can spend more time to fine tune rather than doing heavy compositing, deadline and tighter, and yet deadline are tighter and feedback loops shorter. So you find like the picture you're seeing there on the screen, that studio LED setup, it's basically a film set whereby people are shooting. So you find like the setup has been made uniquely to reproduce or to multiply some of the things that could have been done in post, but then they get to do them on set so that when the editor goes in post, they can just fine tune and just coming up with what is missing. Let's say maybe color, and then making sure that the contrast and everything is look the same to the current picture. But when you are being captured on those LED setup, they reproduce the world of the story, the world of the film behind you. So you find that what was written in the script and then what they are shooting there, and depending on the scene, it's been replicated on set. So when you get in post, you just move on with the cuts and without having to worry about that multiplication of people and everything else. So the first point is these tools don't yet replace the human editor, artistic judgment, but assist with repetitive tasks and speed up workflow. So basically, it does not mean that with AI right now, it will replace the person like that creative field that usually put your project. It does not do that, but it just helps you to cut out time wasted with repetitive tasks. So you think that you would have done in an hour, now you can be able to do it, let's say in 30 minutes or less than that, depending on what the project is and the requirement of the project. So it means you as an artist, you as an editor, you remain the same, your skills stay the same, and you can still do and putting that feel or that same that style of yours can still be added to a project the way you really want it to be. So, and then the point two, the human touch remains essential. No tools replace creative decision making, but tools expand what you can do. I think that we can understand that. Looking at the picture, there's a lady who's down wearing a VR, virtual reality kind of a game. Right now, these things are even being used in film as well, whereby instead of doing animation like there, let's say down there on a laptop or on a PC, now there's a way you can just do your composition while monitoring it directly than just having it there and waste a lot of time rendering to have it play smoothly. So now we're having that like the decisions are still ours because we are the one like prompting the machines or the AI to do what we want. Not like it's going to do what we want for us, but it's for us to prompt it to produce what we really want, depending on what we are prompting it to do. And also, so basically, there's a word that I got down, which is we need to adapt, learn how to integrate these tools rather than resisting them to maintain core storytelling competence. So these tools, they're basically helping us. But it's not like they're coming into the game just to replace what we've been doing or to change that editing, let's say, that creative freedom that we used to have. But they're basically helping us to just cut out those the time wasted in post, the time that we used to waste, and then making sure that we speed up our workflow and making sure that we're having even more control and more control, and also we are spending less time than how it used to be done back then. So basically, that's what AI is really bringing into the game. So rather than trying to say, no, I won't embrace it, it's you is going to be left behind somehow, because there are some tools that are really, really crucial right now, and they are really helping in terms of speeding up the workflow. So when you embrace them and then you learn them, then you can use them effectively into your project and just keeping them there and saying, this has been done with AI. Yes. And later on, when it's come to work, they will still pick that person whose work is looking good than you. So it's just like locking yourself into, let's say, the analog way of editing. So basically, that's how I see it. So it's not a bad thing. You can adapt it and you can just you can just embrace it and just try to incorporate it into your edits. Yeah. still. So yeah, so now we've talked about like where we came from the old school kind of editing, which used to be done by Moviola. That is from a film tape to be cut, like you cut from a film tape basing on what you've been given, to digital shift that we are doing currently, and also to the revolution of AI that we are now trying to incorporate and just trying to make sure that we now use into our workflow. So this is also my film Go editing flow for story, pacing, and rhythm. So like since we've talked about that now, I felt like okay, it's also better that I still run you through what is my everyday film editing flow. And it can also be used not only in film, you can use it in documentaries, podcasts, and any other editing that you might be doing. It doesn't have to be film only. So yeah, and this it doesn't matter which software you're using or what. So every software will still give you this same option, and you can still follow along depending on a software that you're using. The screenshot I provided, those ones are from DaVinci because it's the software I'm using currently, and the pictures you're seeing are just from some project I worked on recently. So yeah, the first thing I usually do, it's an insert footage that is importing and backup all the media that is from the SD card, and then making sure that I sync, align audio and video. I can sync from the software as well as I can still sync from Pluralize. It depends on our project. If it's a podcast, definitely I usually do it with Pluralize. If it's a film whereby everything has been done in a way that if you sync scene by scene, you can still have it flow. I can still use Pluralize and just bring in a timeline that I can work with. But as I'm doing that, I still have to bring in my builds and just rearrange my footage in different bins so that everything is well organized. So that in case a project can move from me to another person, the other person will just be easy. It will be easier for them to interpret and to find things within the software. And then I'll label and organize. That is creating bins for scene and then text for B-rolls and music and S-effects, sound effects. That's what I will do. And then after, I'll review footage, making sure that I take note on emotional beats, strong performance, and camera movement. Because when you're editing, at some point, you usually find like what has been given to you, you can't just start editing there and then. But if you take time and just trying to make some small notes in some of the things that you really need to make sure that the story is being portrayed as it has been written, that can even help you to avoid time wastage when you're starting or when you start your edit. So yeah, that's the reason why I'll take some notes on emotional beat, because the point is more about making sure that those emotions are being portrayed, because we have to be more into making sure that what the characters are really expressing, we are able to put it out. And then after I've done this, on the first point, I'll then go into the second point, which is build the story foundation. And that is basically from assemble the edit as the rough cut, the very first cut that I will do. So here I'll multiply and make 3 different sequences. And then the first one will have my sync, everything in sync. And then the second one, it's where I will start my first cut and start arranging footage and just trying to go through scene by scene. So there I will lay out the story scene by scene according to the script, and then choose the best text based on emotion, clarity, and continuity, and not perfection. Yeah, here I'll basically want to make it more clear. The reason as to why I will choose my best text, my best text based on emotion and clarity and continuity, and not on perfection. The reason is simply because these are the things that the audience will notice, and the audience, they won't focus more onto what has been done perfectly, but they'll look at if they are really relating to the edit, if they are really picking what the film is about by watching your cut. So if you're making sure that you portray much of the emotion into your story, into your cut, and then you're having no continuity issues, and then everything is clear, then they will have your audience glue to the screen while they're watching the film or any other thing that you have been editing. So yeah, the big point is really based on is to stick and making sure that the emotions are being portrayed when it comes to film, because that is really what drives the story. Because the story is king, and you have to make sure that we make sure that the final script, which is the edited film, have everything that that has been highlighted in the script, so that we don't miss out on some point. Or what we can better do, it's rather than missing something, at least we can amplify what has not been done well in let's say during production, and making sure that is now coming out well once we've edited the film. So focus on story logic and emotional flow first, and not pacing. So basically here you're just making sure that you have your story, you have your scenes laid down well, and nothing to worry about pacing, like how fast things are going, how slow some parts are. But here you're just making sure that I just make sure that everything is really laid down well, and my scenes are well they are well organized well, and everything has been trimmed out well. So after I'm done there, then I'll go now to check the story arc. Because as we know, we edit, yes, but there's a guideline that usually guides our edits. So if it's a film, then there will be a script, and that script will be having if it's a linear script, then it will be going from the Act 1, which is just the middle of that's the starting, which is the inciting incident, and then key incident, rising action, and then going to the climax, and then falling action up until the resolution. If it's not non-linear, then it can start maybe with a climax, like where things are really hot, but you have to check out for those particular points, so that when you're cutting, you really know what kind of a film you're putting out. So check the story by checking the story arc, what you're looking at are just like the plot of the story, like the development of the characters, and how that can still be transmitted in your cut while you're cutting, so that you portray the same thing in your cut. So the question you should ask yourself while doing that, it's does the narrative have a clear beginning, middle, and end while you're cutting, while you're organizing your arc? And then secondly, you also have to ask yourself, are the character motivations and emotional shifts clear? Because those are the things that the audience will really look at. So when you ask yourself this question, then you can be able to watch, and wherever you find like you've really gone off, then you can still go back to your script, which guides you to what you can cut. So you find like sometimes some films say do not provide there's a note that there's a book that they can give you, or that is being done by the script supervisor on set. So that person is basically there to make sure that all the best takes, that person will be able to note down the best take that have been that people did while they were shooting. So they will give you those notes, like this from here to here, this was the best performance, this person did this right, they didn't do this right. So when you are in post now, you won't have to worry about what to cut. So they will even ease your work when you are making choices of what to put. But in some scenarios whereby you've not been provided with those tools, or those let's say document for you to move with your edit, then you'll have to watch and making sure that you stick to the story and understand the story, so that you can really bring out all these things clearly. So after I've done that, then I go to the third thing, which is making sure that now I refine the story and start looking out for pacing. So this is now where after I've done my scene, everything is flowing, the arc is there, so everything is really standing well in the edit, like the sequence is really holding. So now here I will now go back to scene trimming and tighten each cut. So each cut should really serve a story momentum. So what I will do here, I'll make sure that the cuts I'm making, they are not just like cut as if I was editing a music video, or I was editing anything that has to be used for social media just to hook people out there. I'll make sure that wherever I'm putting a cut, it really helps to build out the story. It's helping to like keep the viewer glued, keep the viewer. It keeps making our viewer that to focus more even on the story than losing their focus. So the cut should really drive the story rather than making people question what really happened there. And then I'll have to watch over also on beat control, that is identifying emotional beats, moment of tension and relief or revelation, and time my cut to support them. So by this, basically, it's still going back to the beats, whereby you find like the characters really express one of the heavy emotions. Let's say in some scenes whereby you're editing a scene whereby a person will have to cry based on some stuff, and you really have to make sure that it really comes out well, not like a person trying to fake trying to fake it, but you're making sure that that emotion is really being portrayed the way it has been envisioned by the director, so that you keep the story as it's supposed to be done, but not like deviating the viewer's attention. And then now, after I'll watch to rhythmic variation, like where the rhythm is changing. Now I'll have to watch there. That is to alternate between fast and slow sequence to maintain interest. So that is basically mean match pacing to emotional tone. Example, that is slow is for intimacy, and then faster for chaos. Like if you're doing, that is when you're editing a film. So the first thing you look at, they give you a script, you know the genre of the film, and then you know what is really this film about, and how is the story and the plots unfolding in the story. So when you know like how is everything flowing in the story, then you can tell that, okay, then the cut that I will be doing for this particular film, it's not gonna be this fast. Let's say if it's not an action film or anything that really required a lot of fast cut, then you'll know by that. So you'll know how to pace out your cuts based on how the story is really going. So by saying that slow is for intimacy, you find you can't be editing let's say a drama whereby people are just having an intimacy scene, and then you're making fast cut. If you're making fast cut, it will really confuse the viewers, and they won't feel like that is really what the scene is about, because you'll feel like there's a lot of tension going on and there's a lot of stuff happening which does not really match with the scene that you're cutting. But when you're doing a fast scene, let's say an action film, horror, or these other let's say detective kind of a film, when tension is really rising, then you can make your cuts fast to match the tension that is really going on, like to make sure that the climax is really you're really making sure that it's really being seen in the cut as well. So yeah, always to watch out for those. And then that is internal scene rhythm. So use reaction shots, pauses, and eye line matches to control audience emotion. So you're seeing that like reaction shots, like if they've given you a lot of, let's say a lot of takes, and you're having tight shots at some point, because those are the shots that usually bring out that emotional beat very, very well. So for those points whereby you feel like this is really where I should make people feel this particular thing, then you can pull out that shot of yours. That can even be an hero shots, and then when someone watches that, they can really connect to that particular character and just relate to whatever situation they are going to, and or the journey of the story that we are telling. So always watch over these particular element. So yeah, this is basically what my my film Go editing flow usually covers. And then point 4, it's just some of the research I usually made for one of the best editors. This is Walter Marks. He used to be there even during the time of that's during the analog period where people used to work with Moviola. So he's been there. And then he wrote one of the books that are very, very crucial for most editors to look at too, which is In the Blink of an Eye. That used to be his philosophy when it's come to film and when it's come to film editing, and how he usually approaches editing. So you can find the tutorial, the link there. You can find it on YouTube. That is under Studio Binder. If you are to look for the tutorial to even get a deeper understanding of what he really had to bring out this book. So in his philosophy, he used to look at, he came up with this rule, the rule of 6, which simply means that whenever he's cutting, emotion is king. So like it's emotion that takes the much percentage. and for him he could make that he made that he made that he divided them into 6, which is the first one that is taking 51%, that is emotion, and then story takes 23%, rhythm 10, and then eye trace, that is 7, two-dimensional plane of a screen, that is 5, and then three-dimension of an action, that is 4. So that is how he looked at this the rule of 6. So every time he could make sure that whenever he's making a cut, because for him he could use that style of cutting when someone blinks, and he had a reason, because what he used to say was, we entertain an idea and then we blink to separate and punctuate it. So every time you're having a conversation with someone, and then let's say a person is guilty or something, or they want to put out something, when a person blinks, it usually comes after they have blinked. It usually brings out the same something. Either they will come up with a point, or just trying to say something afterwards, or just putting out a point. So that's what he used to do whenever he could cut. So his way of cutting was not that that the one that used to be used more into the old time of when someone speaks. So like if you're having a conversation, there's a dialogue between two people, and then I say a line, and then the other person react back. That's when you make a cut. So if I say hi, and then the other person said hi, so when I say hi, they cut. When the other person said hi, they cut the other person. That's not how you used to approach the way you could head it, because you find like those kind of cutting, it's not really how things usually that's not how things are usually done in our real life, the life that you usually live. And whenever we are cutting, we are just looking at things the way we usually see them in real life. So when you cut, you make sure that it really portray the same thing that you would have seen in a real life, because the film or anything else that you'll be cutting, it's all about making people relate to the story and making people relate to what you want them to see, so that they can keep watching. So the job of an editor is simply to establish an interesting, coherent rhythm of emotion, thought. So that is basically what you should always look at when you're making your cut, whether it's not a film, whether it's a documentary film, and any other editing that you might be doing. Always look after that. Are your cuts like on point, so that if a person starts watching your film or watching your podcast, your documentary, or you are not taking long to a cut, so that person can feel like, no, this is taking too long, that it's not really driving the story. So you're making sure that whatever you're cutting, whatever you're putting out, it keeps that rhythm going on, the emotions are there, and the story is really flowing. And make sure that then the other point here is emotion is the thing that you should try to preserve at all costs. That takes us back still in the rule of 6. The reason why the 51% is there is not just for nothing. So emotions are the thing that usually grab our attention most of the time whenever we're watching something. So that moment, whenever you're seeing that being portrayed in a script or any other guideline that you've been given to come up with a edit, whether it's a TVC or anything, always watch over the emotion, because when you nail onto those points, you have your emotional clear, you have your continuity flowing, and everything is clear. Then when the film is being put out, the pace is cool, emotions are out, emotions are clear, there's no continuity issues, and then you'll have a very good cut, no matter what kind of editing you're doing. So whenever you watch over all these lines, then I think you are good to go as an editor. So yeah, talking about, I said then point 4 is emotion and visual flow. That is visual continuity, maintaining direction, lighting and motion consistent. This will even cover more when we go into the other topic that we shall be covering after editing. And then there's also music and sound. So that has been covered more into the previous session. So transitions as well. So avoid flashy transition unless motivated by the story. When you're doing a film, but when you're editing a film or a documentary, and then you find like the story is not really required this more of this crazy transition. Don't go crazy and just put things just because you feel like, yeah, this looks good for you. Because at time that used to confuse most editors. You find like someone just puts a lot of things just to make sure that the edit is really going. That is like it's just fast paced. So if it's not telling the story, then don't do it. If it tells the story at a particular point, then you can put it. But always watch over that, because those things can really turn out a person watching, so the viewers. But if you go slow and then you just go you just go simple with the cross dissolve, you use your fades out just to make sure that you keep it coherent and you make sure that everything is just moving smoothly, than having flashy things or things that are really taking the viewer to turn off from the edit. So just keep everything clean and make sure that everything is flowing. So then after you've done all these things, and then this takes us now to point 5, which is where now you'll have to go and do a test, a screen test, and see what you can adjust in your take. So now this is where now you get the first feedback round, show the rough cut to trusted peers or the editors. So let's say if the project you're doing, you're having, let's say, you're having your producer there, you're having your director there, you're having some other peers, people who do the same work as you, let's say some other editors around. And then you've done your first cut and you've put in all these things that we've discussed, like everything is really holding as we talked about, as we discussed here. Then here now you can just make a round of screen review and you hear from what the other people have to tell you. So that's now where you'll have to watch for emotional drop off. So when those people are watching, look at the point whereby their emotion or their as they are watching, their emotion, their attention tend to dip. So if you find like someone is watching and then at a particular point they are very hooked, and then it's reached a point whereby you feel like just they've really dropped it, then you can tell like there is need for pacing here. Maybe things are slowy and you need to tighten them a little bit more so that the story holds. So that's now where you're making those notes to make sure that, okay, everything is really on point and all the stuffs are holding. And then you'll now go after they're watching you now. After you've done the screening and people have given you notes, and then you've also made your personal notes based on how you've been looking at the people watching. Then now you can go back and trim and polish, so you can remove the frame, reorder shots, and also retime, cut to maintain the flow. Because by then you would have seen what are the things that really people felt like should stay in the story, and then the thing that really at one point people feel like okay, dropping or just leaving the film or any other thing that you were editing. So when you've done all these 5 things and then you go back now to fine tune, you make sure now just that you polish up your film and just make sure that all your things are really holding, just because this now will be more refining your cuts, maintaining the flow, and just having it flow and just maintaining the story and making sure that the story is really coming out as it has been written, because you are the one now to put out the final film, is the final script. So what you'll make, it's what people are gonna watch and gonna base the film. They are going to judge the film based on what you give them as an editor. So that's the responsibility you're holding in your hand. So whatever that has been done in production, all the prep that has been done, so you're holding the last thing that the audience will be watching and what people are going to judge. So you make sure that you really put out something that is outstanding, and the main thing is just that the story is clear and it's not really lagging. Yeah, so after that, then you go to the 6 points is just like it's just like what we've just talked about. That is polishing performance, ensuring that visual continuity, and finalizing the timing. And then from here, that's now where you will have to lock the picture. Once spacing and structure are approved, lock the edit before handing it off to sound design or color and VFX. So you see, like before the picture goes to this other department for more other work, you would have make sure that it has been locked by your director. So let's say your director would have given it a look, and then they look at everything and they look at if their vision is really coming out the way they wanted it to be. So now when they give you a go away, and then you lock the picture with your editor, with your director and the other crew member that can involve maybe the producer. Then now there you can go into the final touches, which is 7. That is now making watch the entire film without stopping and feel the rhythm as a viewer, not as an editor. Just you cut yourself from that editing or from that creative path and just watch the film. Watch the entire film, making sure that you look at everything just like a viewer, just to look at, okay, how is the film really coming out? And then lastly, that's now where we hand it to the color grader or any other artist involved into the film. So yeah, from where we started from, like where we started from this, from the intro, whereby we talked about the nonlinear, the analog shift from Moviola being used in editing to the digital shift that we are in right now. And then from the digital shift, we then went into the cloud and collaboration, and then the revolution of the AI, and then how to incorporate it into our work. And therefore, looking into my film Go editing flow for story, I feel like at this point, if there's a point whereby maybe someone felt like they had a question or they wanted to ask something before we could go into the next topic, we can first have a round of question and insight and just comments, just to see what we can discuss here together based on what we've covered so far. So yeah, any feedback, any question is welcome. So you can just make a sign or anything in the chat, and we can then we can take it up. Is there any question or any insight? It doesn't have to be a question. It can even be an insight. It can even be a comment, and we just discuss it, or even an view of another perspective, or another person perspective of how they look at things. Because I know, as diverse as we are, discuss it, or even an view of another perspective, or another person perspective of how they look at things. Because I know, as diverse as we are, or even view of another. So yeah, any feedback or some or insight is highly welcome as we move forward.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Yes, I hope I'm clear enough.
Yeah, very clear, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. So first and foremost, just to to say thank you for taking your time and through whatever you had created to present for us. Thank you so much. So first again, to introduce myself, my name is Calvin Oyula, a filmmaker from Kenya. I wanted to ask a question. Now, when it comes to editing,
yes,
on the different types of film genres per se,
yes,
does when an editor maybe edits a lot of work in a certain kind of genre or a specific kind of genre, maybe you are saying this editor is known for editing per se horror films, and then maybe a documentary kind of editor, a comedy kind of genre, or an action kind of genre of the film. First, those are something among editors, or an editor is just an editor? And then I'm asking also as maybe as a director per se, trying to see maybe the different genre in the story, and Also, in the how to approach maybe the editors or the different kind of editors in maybe in a different or specific kind of genre. You come and
Yeah, sure.
yeah, that is kind of something I was trying to say.
Oh, okay. So as we discussed, like you find, like when it's come to editing, it's like a path. It's like a it's like a broader kind of thing whereby you get to pick what you really want to specialize into mostly, and say, okay, this is where I'll put more of my focus, like mostly just to be good at this. So when it's come to film, when it's come to documentary, when it's come to podcasts, let's say highlight video reels and stuff, wedding videos, there are so many editors who can edit. So the concept is the same, editing, like getting footage, cut it into different pieces to just make a story out of it, no matter what. But sometimes it also comes down to specialization, where someone says, okay, me, I'm going to mainly focus or pick a niche and say, okay, I want to be identified as let's say action film kind of an editor. Then that comes down to with techniques that you'll be using in your editing. That is spending now more time watching how action films are being trimmed or any other thing. So it's just like when someone can say, okay, me, I want specialize mainly into trailer cutting. And that person, if you give them a trailer, they know all the points and bits that they always look at that usually drive a trailer. For instance, I might say, for a trailer, it's usually driven by a couple of things. Like you find like our trailer is usually being done. So you'll have to pick, you'll get a line. So someone will say a line and then a moment. So they can say maybe in the beginning there was this person, and then you put a moment. After that moment or action kind of a thing, then you put another line, then you add more shots just to compile that. And you make sure that the more the action is happening, if the action is happening to the right side, you keep the next picture that you put it in the left side, so that it keeps the viewer glued, like you find like you are not changing the eye person watching. So that person, when you do that exercise for so many days, you find that you become so good at that if they tell you, okay, now shift from editing trailers to, let's say, weddings or events, you'll still edit, but at the start you feel like you're still lacking some creative freedom in that particular sector. But it always comes down to what you want to specify into when it's come to editing, and then you get too good at that, and there you can now decide and say, okay, this is my niche. But everyone can edit, but all these things, a person still has to spend a lot of time learning a certain craft for it to become good. Let's say if it's at film editing, music video editing, documentary, events, and any other thing. And that's how several companies are just branding them. So you find like for them, they're only known for this. And whenever they do that kind of work, it comes out top notch, and everything is just clear to the viewers and to even the clients themselves. So yeah, so Calvin, it's just it's also a specialization kind of a thing, because the editing itself is broader, but it's a person now to pick up what they want based on let's say maybe with the market that they're having around them. So you can say, this is what I will do. For instance, I can give an example of me. I edit films, I do music videos, but currently where I'm working right now, we are doing more of events. So when I just joined, when I joined, I spent like a whole full year where I was editing only films, back and forth. So when I joined the company, and then I found like people are doing more events and stuff, and sometimes we could do film, but it comes in not like every day. So you felt like it was like hard at some point, like to just get used to kind of a pace on how they've been doing their thing. But then after some time, some period of just doing it, because it's all about using that same theory that you've been using into a film, just to tell a story. Just that it's not just because it's a film or just this is an event, but even if it's an event, there is something that is happening. So there are events still happening. So you still have to make sure that when you cut, you make sure that those events are clearer for people who are going to watch it later on and still get a feel of, okay, this really happened. But then now you find like for events, you then have to engage people and make them feel like they missed out on something. That's the goal. They're like, okay, this has been lit. So you have to be so creative to make sure that all the spices have been done in edit to make sure that even your transitions, effects, and even how your grading is looking and everything, sound effect, sound design, everything is on point to make sure that really holds down. But the thing that usually drives us, if you understand the let's say the basic of how editing is being done, you can apply all these techniques in different film or different genre of films. And then when you are now trying to specialize into a particular genre or particular sector of editing, then it will be easier because then you will just have to shift your mind to a particular sector and then just apply the same thing while doing it often. That's how you get better to it. Yeah. Any other thing, Calvin? I hope I've been able to clarify some of the thing.
Yes, thank you so much. In case I get anything, I'll reach out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else with insight or something else that we can share before we move forward? Bran? Okay, then I think we should move on and just see what comes next. So yeah, we talked about editing and then this now the topic that we are going to is color grading. That's another full topic on its own, and I feel like it's needed another hour for us to just discuss
Ben.
it. Yes? Yes, Brian.
Now, the topic that we're going to is color grading. That's another full topic on its own. And
Brian?
I feel like it's needed another hour for us to just discuss it. Yes?
Brian, can you
I
hear
think
me?
you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hope my screen is still there and sound is clear and everyone can still see my presentation. So yeah, for those that have been here last time when you had this same topic, I'm sure they are now familiar with some of the things that I'm sharing on the screen. So yeah, we'll better start with the origin of color grading, the origin of film color grading. So early beginnings, hand tinting and toning, 1890s and 1910s. Before true color film existed, colorists literally painted film frames by hand or used chemical bath to tint entire scenes. So back then, all these things that we're having right now are all these softwares used not to be there. And for the first guy who made the first colored film is a French guy called Georges Méliès, one of the first filmmakers to hand in tint to his films, which is the trip to the moon, which you're seeing on the presentation. He was the first person who introduced this color to film. Like his film was the first film to have a feel or to have a lot of special effects and stuff that people used not to see back then. So this guy, he was a director and he was a film editor. And yeah, so he died on 25th of January 1938 when he was 76 years old in French Paris. Yeah, so this was the guy who made the first colored film, Georges Méliès. So yeah, so this is where we came from. So like from this kind of painting whereby people will go and then look at those frames and then they repaint them to replicate what has been shot to make sure that all the frames are painted to come up with a film that is colored. So yeah, that's the guy who really introduced us to this world that we are in currently. And so how camera settings and color science shape the narrative now? This is now the world we are in, and that is the things we are using nowadays. So what is color grading? This is basically the process of adjusting color, contrast, saturation, and exposure to achieve a desired look. And then why it matters in storytelling, color influence emotions, mood, and audience perception. So if you look at One Piece School, when it's very early in the morning, there's a way you usually find like the look outside, it usually gives you that feel of cool, contrasted with warmth. But that is if it's around like let's say 6 a.m. in the morning, and then by the time it's the sun is risen to about let's say 7 night turns into tungsten, which is warmth completely. So whenever all those things, they're just kind of information that whenever you see that, it tells something to your brain, and you understand that okay, this is the time that we are living. Because even the people that used to be there before us, they could just tell like the time by a particular feel or mood that the color that they are seeing. So the pictures you're seeing, that is basically what we usually do when we are color grading, just trying to adjust different contrast of, let's say the contrast and then saturation and exposure, just making sure that you play with their contrast to just come up with a desired look that we want. That is basically how I define color grading, and that is what it stands for whenever we apply it to our films. So and then while talking about color grading itself, there are also elements that contribute to that when you try to venture yourself into this particular field. It also comes down to monitors that you use, picking the best monitor to your workflow and seeing what will work best based on the editing that you're doing or based on the grading that you're doing. And in the research I made, MacBook Pro M1, M2, or M3 with Liquid Retina, these have been rated to be like some of the good screens in terms of calibration because how they've been made. So if you have a MacBook, one of these models that are listed above, then you're good to go. You can start with that. And then down there's a picture that shows the statistic of what's the performance that is display and then suitable for what, and also some notes that have been made. So if you want to really get into this game and maybe you have the means to purchase for yourself those good screens or monitors to get you started, then there's a link that you can find online, and you can just type best monitors for color grading in 2025. It will give you the ultimate buying guide that will explain to you what each of these monitors is good at and then what comes with it. So yeah. And then this is just in line with what we've just discussed, what is good in certain monitors and then things that you should watch for. Another point is like, you don't need those monitors to start. You can even use your phone, either iPhone or Samsung. And there are phones that have been, research shows that there are phones that have been made in a way that they can still give you accuracy whenever you're editing, like the Samsung Galaxy S10. Because the phone I'm using right now, sometimes I use it for my grade. It has a good screen, but also they usually come in limitation because they are small in size, so you don't get to see very well what is being, what you're working on well for you to really tell where you can adjust well. That's why monitors are still the best option to go for. But whenever you still don't have that option, then you can still use even your phone, iPad, or even other screens. And then later on, you can now run a test to different screen just to see how the look comes out after you've watched over your edited clip. So yeah, this is the role of color in cinematic storytelling. These two pictures comes from a film I shot last year, and then how to edit it, how to grade it. So if we talk about mood and tone, the picture on the left side, that is warmth. That we are just seeing warmth. That is warm tones, which gives us that feel of intimacy. Like that can even blend much into drama and let's say this rom-com kind of a film. Let's say telenovela stuff kind of a. So even that you can still even take it. Okay, for me in this particular film, it was more contrasted because the story we are trying to tell, we did not want to go so warm, like making it vibrant, because there's a bit to the story that made us stick to this, to just make sure that what we are trying to talk about really comes out as the with the picture as well. And then on the picture on the right side, that is a cool kind of a tone that is gives us that kind of a feel of isolation. You find like there's just a feel that comes that you feel like when you look at these two pictures, you feel like, oh, there's a difference. They are not like the same. It's not like the same mood. It's not like the same tone that you get by looking at them. And also production design, wardrobe, whatever they're wearing, depending on the picture. So yeah, that is how big color comes in and when it's come to mood and just making sure that we're highlighting on those on the look that we are really trying to go for to come out with a story and making sure that the time that the story was, let's say if the story was set, let's say 1960s, and you can't give me a color that looks like nowadays. So your world of a story should always guide the color or the feel that you are going to give to a film. And then also capturing for color grading, camera settings. Every time you're aiming to go and do more color grading in post, then you need to watch over these things. That is shooting settings and then the settings that you're doing for you to come up with a well graded picture. So you get your camera and you make sure that you set it to log. And what is log? Basically, it's a flat, low contrast image profile capturing maximum dynamic range. What is dynamic range? Dynamic range is just like it's an assemble of a picture that has a lot of pixels and has a lot of color information in terms of bits. So you'll be having a lot of pixels that are combined with the RGB color, that is red, green, and blue, so that you can have a lot of creative freedom in post to just maneuver and just twist or change things here and there. Why log? Because log gives colorists more flexibility in post, retain highlight and shadows. Because when you're grading, these are the things that you're usually trying to maintain and making sure that they stands out. When you are trying to come up with a balanced contrast or a well-balanced picture, you have to look at this thing. Let's say, for instance, a picture was overexposed, then you can still be able to bring down the exposure if the picture has been if the image was shot in log, because you're still having all those details and you can still bring them back. If the shadows are down, then you can still be able to raise them higher just to make sure that the picture is well balanced. And then these are just popular log profile that are known that are known, and there are so many. There's S-Log3, there's C-Log for Canon, there's V-Log for Panasonic, there's also there are so many. Blackmagic, there's ARRI. So all those things you can just look and just you can even make some other research and just look at several color profile that's out there. These were just example of things that I felt like just putting there, but there are so many depending on the camera that you're using. So yeah, for the setting, these are the things that you need to start with to make sure that your picture is well balanced, so that when you get to post, you don't get to worry a lot. And this is how a flat picture usually look, a picture that is in log. So when your camera is well set, that is how a log picture looks. So it just looked flat. There's color, yes, but it's like the color is muted. So there's no saturation. So saturation is not in the picture. So you are the one now to choose in post what you need. So when it's come to basic kind of settings, you keep your ISO for like use your native ISO for log. That is look for the camera that you're using and get to know what is the base ISO that you can keep. So in case even if you go too low, your picture will still be clear and not having noise into it, to keep the noise reduced every time. So if you're using Sony, then if you keep it up from, let's say, 800, you're still okay, and you can even go lower than that, but don't go higher. You can still go higher, yes, but still, if you're aiming for this, then keep it in the base ISO. It's better. So you have less noise to work with in post. And then you also have to watch over your black that is white balance. So you lock your white balance for consistency. Let's say if you're shooting let's say an outdoor scene, and your white balance has been 56 all through, so you keep it that way, so that when you get in post, you don't have to have color shift or white balance shift And then there's also bit depth, that is HEM4, 10 bits or higher, more color info. By 10 bit, that is still what comes in when it's come to dynamic range. So if a camera gives you, it can shoot, let's say, in 10 bit or higher than that, or that is basically looking at a camera sensor, what resolution it gives you and what you're aiming at, because it's not more about going to the highest resolution like 12K every time. It depends on a project and really what you want to go for. Let's say you'll do a lot of work in post that's also even in VFX, then you need to go higher in terms of the resolution so that you're having a lot of information just in post to play around with. And then these are some of the color space that are there. There's wide gamut Rec 2020S, and then there's gamut 3 Cine, and there are others there. So we shall get to talk about this more later in the next slide. And then there's also exposure. So expose to protect highlights, but avoid underexposed log. So every time you're shooting in log and you're aiming to do color grading later on, make sure that you can have your picture slightly overexposed than having it underexposed. Because when you have it underexposed, then the information, when you're pulling out the let's say the exposure to just trying to get those underexposed shadows to be clear, there's no information there. There's some information that you're missing in the picture. So by putting them up, you're just increasing noise. But if you're having your picture slightly overexposed, that can still be worked on in post. So for a Sony, let's say if you are using a Sony, you're having those controls on the display of a Sony. There's a down. There's somewhere where they put double M, so like MM. You always keep it. You can keep it at 2+2, but don't go beyond, because every time it start to blink, then you've gone overexposed, and then you can just keep your zebra on so that it can help you to look at the areas that are overexposed. By the moment that your picture, you find like the subject in your picture, they are not blinking at no point, then you're still covered, you're still well. So the other information, you can still recover them in post. For Blackmagic gives you a false color range whereby you can just go and control and make sure that you're seeing the areas that are in well exposed. So by looking at the color that comes with false colors, if the subject that you're having on your picture, the person is the subject's face gives you green and purple and then the middle gray, then you're having a well exposed picture. But when you start going down to blue and then yellow and red, then you know that your picture is overexposed. So always watch over those markers, and it can always help you to tell whether your picture is well exposed or not well exposed. And all these other big cameras like Red, Blackmagic, that's the mechanism that they use mostly. False color or the safe zone, whereby you always have to keep it in the middle gray. So yeah, that is for the settings when it comes to setting your camera to get a very well exposed log picture to work well in post. So now understanding color science in post, this is now where we are going to talk about color spaces and gamut. So there's Rec 709, which is known, and then there's also Rec 2020 with DCI-P3. So differences in these are just times of garments that are within this thing you're seeing here. So this graph you're seeing here, there are colors in the middle. So like there's this line here there's this rectangle, a triangle here that is in white, and then there's another one in orange, and then there's the last one which is in red. So all these, they are covering different garments and then size that a camera covers. So if you're recording in Rec 709, then the camera is capturing just details. You're covered within this range. So if your camera can still give you more DCI-P3, then you're still having more element into this. And then if you're having Rec 2020, then you're covered with all of this stuff. So this also usually comes down to what the camera sensor is. So let's say if you're having a full frame camera, and then you can still shoot up to 6K, 12K, whatever it is. The more higher you go, the more details you have into your picture, and then the more color range and you'll be having when you go in post to work onto your color. So yeah, that is basically what it means when it comes to Rec 709. And then Rec 709, it's an output color space that most of the TV usually export their film into. So yeah, talking about that, there's a picture I attached here of how the color space now usually transform this when it comes to post. So every time when you open DaVinci, down here there's a settings whereby you first go and check the color management and then see if you're still working in the RGB or if the white garment, but you can still change here as well. So it's the same thing. So there is this color space transform that you can do. That is, we assume your film has been shot in log and everything has been done well. So then you come in post. This is an example of a film that was shot on a red. So then you input the color space of that camera, like this was shot on a red white garment RGB. So you put it in the input color space. That's for the conversion. And then input gamma, you look for the red log 3. There are so many gamma, but you look for what has been used, like what the DP said, you put it there. You can change depending on maybe if you want to achieve a different thing. And then you go output, you can either pick Rec 709 or there is also some other output that are there. And then output gamma 2.4. That is the standard that most of the, because when you know where your film is going to be aired, then you can tell which garment to put. But if it's going to go on YouTube, social media, or films, then that is the best garment you can have with when the contrast is really well, that cannot disturb the viewer when they're watching. That's basically what the garment stands for. So when you've done this conversion, then your picture will come from looking like this to this. So that's what will. But okay, now this one here, it's like when I've done a lot of changes. So like your picture will just shift from a log, like a flat picture, to something that you can start working with. But all this, what I'm having here is just my workflow from our previous project I worked on. So this is when I've done now a lot of things, just covering a lot and just making sure that the look is now out depending on how I wanted it. So like how I started here was like I created that CST. The CST is this color space transform. That is it here, CST. So that's where I do my conversion. So I open and CST in, and then I come back here and then I make another CST out. For some music, I can even have another link, another node at the end to add, let's say, for instance, I can add a LUT that is for my final look that I want to go for. But for this particular edit, for this particular grade, I did not have to do that. So then I open my CST in. I have my node here for noise reduction here, but I did just a slight noise reduction. I'm having my HDR here. That's where now I control my exposure, and then just making sure that the picture is really looking well. I'm having my white balance here, which I usually do. For me, I usually go into, I usually set my white balance in the gamma of it. I usually set it in linear so that it usually gives you something that is accurate. So I usually select this, and then if you're in DaVinci, I just can't do it online, but if you're in DaVinci, you select your white balance node. You right click on it, and then you go to gamma, then you change your gamma to linear. Once you've done that, you go back to your primaries, and then you come down here. There's Luma mix. You lower the Luma mix to 0%. It by default is 100%. You lower it to 0%, and then you go now to gain. So now you change your white balance to gain. You come down here to scopes. You change it from parad to vector scopes, and then you can increase the view to X zoom so that you can see it well. So that you can do if you're in DaVinci for that. Then you come now to gain, and then you make sure that you just pull your, because when you select the vector scope, it will show you there's a line whereby your skin tones and correct white balance should be leaning. So you make sure that you pull them there until you get some correct white balance. Then you do it there. And then I'm also having my exposure. This is where then I will go to shadows. Maybe if I feel like I need to increase some shadows in my exposure and then give it a different feel, let's say like a greeny kind of a feel, I can decide it in this particular node. I go and then I just pinch a little bit my mid-tone. I can still do it here. So all these 3 nodes, they are basically there for adjusting my exposure. And then after I'm done here, that's when I go into skin tones. Now to skin tones as well, I will have to go back into the vector scope here and change my skin tones to whichever way I want, like to the look that I want, but making sure that my skin tones are really coming out depending on the kind of a person that I'm editing. So there are several ways you can do that. You can either use the mask or you can just select these two, but also there's still another way. I always do it into linear, and then I still use the gamma to just take it up. And then this other slide here, this other node I'm having here, it's my color slide. This is now where I get to go and just change different hues of colors. Let's say if I want my blue to have a different feel, I can change it to a desired look I want. If I want this area that is in kind of gray to give it another feel, I can change it hues to whatever I want within this color slice. Or I can also have, I can either do it in color slice or I can have it in HSL. HSL, you even find these settings as well in Premiere. So I changed that. But since we are just having a course whereby we're just going through things that we find within the software, then I'm just giving you a breakdown of what I usually do. And then I do a face refinement. For this particular project, I did that because I wanted to separate the subject from the background, just make them pop a little bit more. So I did that here, and then added a little bit of radius just to pull out some sharpness, making sure that the picture is more sharper than how it used to look when it was in log. And then just glow some of the lighting within the picture. All this thing I did it here. And then vignette, this was just to complete with my separation from these two, separation of the subject to the background. And then the last thing I had to do for this particular project was just to do a CST out. So my CST in, what usually changed from the CST in, because a lot of people usually have this confusion when it's come to conversion. So if you come and say, let's say your input is red, let's say if this is my output. So let's say if you are converting your picture. So the first thing you will do, you'll come and say your input color space will be DaVinci, let's say DaVinci white garment, and then your input gamma, that's for the CST in. For the color space transform in, it will be DaVinci intermediate. And then down here on output color space, that's where now you put red white garment, and then down here you put red log 3G10. So then when you go into the output, this CST here out, that's now when you do this. So you just replicate what has been done. So now here you move what has been placed down here to up here. So now you move the red white garment to input color space, and then you move the red log to the input gamma. And then here you set your output to Rec 709, and then your output gamma to the gamma 2.4. Then they will have a good conversion of whatever picture you're using. Even if it's Blackmagic, it's the same thing. If it's Blackmagic, it's Sony, Panasonic, Canon. You just have to look through here, and it will always give you different color spaces that come with different cameras. And even when you're having your cameras, you can just check through whenever you're setting for a log, it will give you those color profile that a camera has. So you can always go through them and understand which one does what. So after I've done all these things, now my picture then came down to this, which was the look we are going for, because this was a documentary of a certain company, and their brand color was within this. So like, we're just trying to keep it within the brand color. Yeah, so just like I said, whatever we've been discussing there, this is again an overview of what we've just talked about. So when you are, that is my grading step overview. And sometimes it changes depending on a project I'm doing. It doesn't have to be like that every time, but it always comes down to what you're doing. The first thing is balance, correct exposure, and then match shots. That's the first thing that's usually been done. And then secondly, convert log to workspace using either light or color space transform. And then 3, because if you're working with Blackmagic, you can just convert. There are some Blackmagic LUTs that usually comes by default within DaVinci, and also some other camera LUTs are here. So sometimes you can just look for that one that works for you, and then you convert if it's worked for the desired look you're going for, and then you can start building from there instead of just going through all this hassle of doing this. If you're using Blackmagic, then you can just go in through the Blackmagic LUTs that are in, and then you can convert from there. That is why we're having this line here, using LUT or color transform. And then the third thing I do that is primary grade. That is contrast, white balance, and exposure. And then fourth thing, that is secondary grade, that is skin tone, selective use. That is where I talked about like HSL and color slice, and also some other adjustments that have been done just to make the picture stand. And then the point number 5, that is now creative look. That's now where I create my look if I want. It's like this node that you find here that is disabled. Like for this particular grade, I did not feel like it was needed because there's a lot within it, but it did not bring out what I wanted. So I made more of my look adjustment within exposure, just trying to play around with shadow colors, and then playing with midtones, and also playing with my HSV, which is my saturation, just making sure that I'm having that clear saturation that I'm not mess up with color. Yeah, and then the point number 6, that is now final delivery in the target color space. So yeah, this has been like the workflow that I usually do whenever I'm grading. And then, yeah, that is basically when it's come to my workflow whenever I'm doing a color grading. And this other point was just preparing for a pre-shoot workflow. What I usually do whenever I know I'm going to be working, like they have called me for a project, and then I'm going to be, maybe I'll be doing color grading, and then it's a big project, and then I just want to get a good understanding about the project. So what I will do, a pre-production kind of meeting that I will attend. So it will be like a colorist plus DP plus director. So we align on the desired look, because the DP is the one usually come up with a look Bible and what's the picture, how each scene is going to look. So when they tell you this is the kind of lighting that is going to be done for this scene, this is the look that we are going for, this is the tone that we are trying to establish for this particular scene, then you get to understand, okay, now how you can play around those kind of settings, because you've been involved in this kind of, so you understand not only the script, but you get to understand even what the DP is looking after, and also what the director wants to put out. So then you discuss deliverable if the client wants the film to be delivered in Rec 709, HDR, or DCI-P3, ATC. So you just have those kind of conversations, so that whenever you're delivering your final project, it just comes down to whatever the needs of the client, or whatever the producer really wanted to put out. And then you also get to choose the camera and log profile based on final output. So that is now the DP who will decide that after you guys have had this kind of conversation of really what you want to go for. Because there now you can be able to know, okay, with this camera can give us more dynamic range to really achieve this. Because all those things, they usually come in handy to realize a certain look. For instance, the film there's a film that was shot on FX3. I don't know. Let me try to look at that. It was a film of a certain guy going to the moon, kind of a stuff. So the film was shot on an FX3. Reason being, it was the camera that the director maybe found that it was going to give them a very good performance in low light situations. So they're like, okay, let's pick this camera because it's going to bring out what we are aiming for. So it's always a very good exercise or discussion to have before you can just go straight into production itself. So yeah, that is the discussion I usually have. And then just getting to understand all those things. For that film I talked about that was shot on an FX3, it's The Creator. It's The Creator. The entire film was shot on an FX3 and some other accessory just to make the film stand out. So that was the decision made after research that have been conducted to see what will really bring out the picture the way they want it. Yeah, so it's been that for color grading kind of run through of where it started from, and then softwares that are made for that, and also how we started to get to the point where we are right now. So yeah, so we've talked about the origin of film color grading and the pioneer, the person who usually played the big role to make sure that today we are now grading the films, who is Georges Méliès, a French guy, and then talked about what it is, like color grading itself, and also why it matters in storytelling. And then we also talked, just look out for some good monitor when it comes to choices for someone to get themselves started in color grading. And also, then we also talk about these are pros and cons that you need to check out for, and just looking at some examples of films that have been done that I did, and also just trying to replicate what we've discussed, and also looking at the capture the settings that you can do whenever you're aiming to have a film graded. So from these points, when it comes to color grading, sometimes you might be asking yourself why you can't achieve a certain look. If you didn't check your settings, you can't, because you see, when it comes to color grading, it's basically what you have what you set your camera to before you start shooting. That's what will define what you'll have like final. So for instance, it's if you set your camera, let's say you set your camera in film, that it means your camera has a lot on it, or there's a lot on it already, so you can't change the picture. But if you have your picture in log, it's just like you have been given a raw food, so you can still spice it up in whatever like in whatever taste you want. So that is basically what usually comes down whenever we are doing color grading. So yeah, so sometimes you might find your camera, you're just shooting things and they're in color, the saturation is higher, and then you're still wondering what is really happening and why the picture is not really coming to a certain reference that you had. But the moment you get to do the settings that are right, then that helps you to get to that desired look that you want, because you've respected because you have the picture, you had what you really you had the settings that will give you that picture the way you wanted it. And then we talked about these were still like key settings and stuff that we can do. Let's say setting camera settings just to get that well balanced kind of a log picture. Then we also had, I just showed you guys what is it when it's come to color space and gamut, and also what is how the separation and how the different things are done. And also this is just a screenshot from what it is now when you come from a camera, and then you're now going into transforming your log picture into a working picture that you can start working on to create that look you want. And this was just an overview of a project I did, and then kind of my workflow of stages I had to go through. Yeah, and that was it, guys, for color grading and also editing. So yeah, from where we've reached so far, I know there might be people's question, or let's say insight when it's come to the stuff, things that we've just discussed. Yeah, then we can just share or ask, and then we can discuss it in depth, looking at the minutes that we are still having. Yeah, so for any question, feedback, or even insight, you're really welcome to ask, so we can just discuss it even further. Yeah. Any question, guys?
Hey guys, do we have any questions?
Any question, guys?
Okay, my question would
Hey guys,
be,
do we have any questions? Any question, guys?
okay, my question would
Hey guys,
be,
do we have any questions? Yes, Brian, I can hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm having feedback.
Yes, Brian, I can hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm having feedback. Okay, I don't know if you get the feedback from your side, but my question would be,
Yes, Brian, I can hear you.
especially when maybe when you said
Okay, I don't know if you
the
get the
discussion
feedback
that
from
you
your
have
side, but my question would be,
as a DOP and colorist, there's a discussion that you normally have with the director before you go to production. So does this mean that it also affect all the other departments of the production, especially in terms of production design, wardrobe and things like that, so that you can get the color that you want?
Come again a little bit, Brandy. I've just missed something, but kindly just come again and then I pick it out at once. Brian, just come again. There's some bits I missed when you are still asking. Yes, I have that feedback, but still I could hear you well. Brian? Brian, can you hear me? Brian? Brian?
Yes. So in terms,
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
So
Kindly ask
in-
again. Just
hello, Ben. Can you hear me?
Brian? Yeah, I can hear you.
So in terms,
Yeah, I can hear you.
yeah. So the question is,
Ask again.
yeah, the question is in terms of the discussion. Which other departments do you have discussions with, apart from the DOP
The question is,
and the director?
the question
Especially
in terms of
which other departments, either in art, production design, that makes you get the color that you desire to have in the final output?
the discussion that you can, the other department you can look at to that usually contribute to how the final film usually look. It's a production design and wardrobe, because the clothes, the clothing that people are going to wear in a film and any other thing prop that is going to be placed to build that set, those are the things that usually contribute to how the final picture looks. So the things you can watch out to when the wardrobe people are selecting the colors, to make sure that the colors they are picking, they are not so saturated, because you'll still have to push that saturation in post. But if the choice of colors that have been picked on set, they are like things that are very, very oversaturated. They are very, very like they are too. You can see more of the details in them, then you won't have much control over them, and then that is what you find. Even at some point that you might find someone wearing a yellow that is popping, and even the other person who's standing close to them, there's a reflection of yellow into them. So you'll still have to, now you then have to correct a lot of things instead of just going straight into the color. But when you get this conversation with the wardrobe person, the production designer, just getting to understand like props that are going to be used, and also the wardrobe that have been picked depending on scenes, then you then have a clear picture on what to expect when it's come to the picture you'll be working with, because by then you would have gotten feedback from the DP and knowing the camera that they're going to go for, the picture profile that you're going to work with. You've understood the director's vision and also what they want out of the film, and then what is the film, like the film set, the setting of the film. If it's a film that is set into the let's say the 19th, the 60s, and then, or if it's a film that is set to this modern world, like our days. So once you've understood all those different different departments and what they are going to be using, then there you'll have a clear picture of what what you'll be doing as a grader. So when the picture gets to you, then it will make your work your work easier than how it would have been if you did not get involved in those kind of discussion. Because then there, if you didn't go through those kind of discussion, then you'll start asking later on in post, why was this done? Why was this done? And just like having a film that people are going to do VFX, and then the VFX artist is not on set to coordinate some of those shots, how they should be captured. So when you're in post, then you're like, no, this can't work out, reason, because you are not involved to tell them what they should do and what they should not have done, so that everyone can work well. Because when it comes to film, it's a teamwork, and the more you have discussion with other departments, the more seamless and the more the flow becomes easier when it comes to post-production. Because this saying that we keep saying that we will always fix it in post, yes, we can fix it, but sometimes things can become hard if you didn't really put in consideration some of the things. Yes, that is it, Brian. I hope it has answered some of the things. Brian? Brian? Yes, guys. Is there any other person with
Yes, thank you.
with a concern or insight or anything? Because I'm sure we really discussed this other thing last time, but since we're just doing a recap, maybe there's some question that people wanted to ask and then they've not been answered. So we can utilize this time just to find out those kind of questions. So guys, I think that will be it for the session, for this recap, because I feel like most of these things maybe. So guys, I think that will be it for the session. We've gotten that clear understanding on some of the areas that we discussed. And yeah, this has been what I've planned, that what I researched for whenever it comes to these two topics that we had to share. And now I'm going to just send this the pitch deck in the group, so that the people who didn't make it here, someone who would always want to go back to it, can still go back to it and just pick something and just let it guide their decision when it's come to editing and color grading. So it's been a nice time again having you guys here, and then having to just having this time discussing these things together, and then just trying to keep ourselves in the same field, which is our industry of film and anything relating to production, which keeps us moving. So the more we discuss these things, the better we get to learn some of the things. And it's not like it's just a session of me telling you what I know or what I've experienced or what I use, but sometimes also we are learning from each other, and that's the aim of the chat itself. So yeah, it's always a pleasure having to share something and just hearing from you guys, and then different perspective of people. So yeah, it's been a pleasure for me, and grateful still to have been here and have been having this time just sharing something with you guys once again. Yeah. Brian?
All right, Ben.
Yes.
Ben,
Yes?
thank you so much for today's session, and
Yes, of
also for being able to come back another time to share with us. Thank you so much for today's session. I understand we had a session last week, but then you are kind enough to come back and share with us. So to each and everyone that has come back again for today's session, I understand most of you were here last time. Diego, Isaac, Mahadi, that have been able to finish the session with us. So we'll be having these sessions on Zoom because we've been having a challenge with Google Meet. We've been having a challenge with Google Meet. So currently we want to go with Zoom, because Zoom is giving us maybe a bit more time to also help us also screen or rather stream the sessions live on YouTube. It's like that there is no more reason for members failing not to follow up or maybe to be a part of the sessions once again. So from Ben to Isaac to Diego to Mahadi and to everyone else that was part of this session, thank you so much. We'll be having another session this Thursday on directing. We don't have so many sessions left, guys. We're just doing this, and once that time comes and we feel like we've been able to maybe approach most of these topics that people really want us to talk about, maybe that time would have had a good input for the film chat. Until then, we are here. If you're out there and you feel like you have something to share with us on topics that have not been covered, please reach out to us. We have a WhatsApp group whereby we'll be able to also be given an opportunity to also share with us. Otherwise, apart from that, I will ask one of us to lead us in a prayer, a closing prayer, if any of us can do that. And then we call it a session. You could also give a vote of thanks to Ben before maybe you give us the prayer. Any of us who is in the chat, the chance is here for you. Anyone? Isaac, Diego, Mahadi, anyone? Anyone there? Hello?
I think people have maybe people have logged out.
Okay. All right. Let me take it on. Once again, Benjamin Bahati, thank you so much for today's session. Thank you so
Thank you,
much
my
for
brother.
coming back a second time to share with us. Hello?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben, once again for the session. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for taking off time and always coming back to share. So
It's a pleasure. It's been a
the
pleasure,
rest of
man.
us who have been part of the session, thank you so much. Please keep coming back, keep sharing. Anytime this opportunity comes out for those that want to check into the film chat, so that we can also have that opportunity for them to be a part of the session. So let's humble ourselves and pray. Also take note, guys, this has been the first live session we've had. Yeah, and we shall have more of these live sessions streamed live on our YouTube channel. Okay, I see Jackson has just joined in. So Jackson, did you miss out a lot on the session?
Yeah, I miss out, but don't worry, it's fine. You can continue.
I see Jackson has just joined in. Okay. Jackson, did you miss out a lot on the session?
Yeah, I miss out, but don't worry, it's fine. You can continue.
Okay, let's pray. God, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the gift of wisdom and sharing that you've given us. Lord, we are young creatives who love film, and every time we come together to share, every time we come together to learn, every time we come together to be better, we pray that you always are amidst us, amidst all the challenges that we go through as African filmmakers. You've still given us the chance to keep dreaming big. Lord, we pray that the film chat may continue to share or put a light on the on young filmmakers, such that they continue to dream big and become better. We ask you this, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. All right, guys, have a good night.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Good night.